The Six Figure Deals Workshop, which will be on Saturday, June 29th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, is all about how to do six-figure profit deals on a consistent basis, no matter where you live. It'll work for anyone who can follow directions and is willing to take consistent effort. It doesn't take a lot of money. If somebody doesn't have a lot of experience, in a way, that's great because you're starting with a fresh slate. If somebody does have experience, here's some more tools in your arsenal. I realized in 2012, the only way that I'm going to have financial independence is to do deals where I'm making six figures a deal. Then the very next year after I made that rule for myself, in 2013 was the first year that I hit net of over $1 million in income for the year. So there's basically two main ways to make profits on deal. One is just find a good deal and sell it as is to a buyer. The other one is do a complete remodel in it and list it back on the market. I like both. It just depends on the property. And sometimes it also depends on the timing. If I'm in the middle of a big project and I get another deal, I might just sell quickly as is to get another six figures. If I'm feeling like I have the time and energy and inclination to do a complete remodel, if I feel like I can wait a few months to get that big payday, then I might do that. So both the property itself and your own personal circumstances should factor in. So two examples of deals that I've done in the past year that worked out really good. One of them I got from an agent. Purchase price was $1,435,000, and the house was in a good part of Silicon Valley, needed remodeling. Did a complete remodel on it and put a couple $100,000 in and sold it for $2,050,000. After a couple of months of work, a $380,000 profit deal. So that worked out really nicely. Another one that I did earlier this year with a similar profit was a result of direct mail that I sent out. Bought a house for $1 million in a good area. The house had cracks and was badly in need of repair, but the market around there was very hot, meaning very low inventory and lots of people looking to buy. So I basically sold that as is, got around 1.5 for it, and also made about a $400,000 profit on that property without doing the rehab. Do I ever have deals where I make less than six figures on a deal? Absolutely. There was a house that I bought in December of last year and sold it in January of this year, 2024. And that house was about $200,000. It was on the outskirts of the Bay Area. So you can imagine a house like that in an area here where we're at over $1 million per house is pretty rare. I paid a little over 200,000 for the house, and I was happy to make 75,000 net profit on it because I didn't even do any work to it. And if you look at the percentage return, it was huge. But primarily and almost exclusively, my focus is on how can I make six figures a deal. So I think, first of all, the most important thing is to choose a market, and that could be the market that you live in, which is probably the easiest thing to do. But you can also be involved in investing in a market that is outside of where you live. I know people that are international that are doing a lot of deals here in California and other parts of the US. Personally, I prefer the high-end markets because it's easier to make more money on deals that are more expensive. Once you choose your market, you have to learn that market. Things like who's buying, what's a typical profile of someone who's buying. I'm in Silicon Valley, so there's a lot of tech money, a lot of high tech people that are buying. And then who's selling? A lot of times that's older people or a different demographic than the people that are buying. What is selling quickly? What is not selling so quickly? Right now, condos, condominiums, townhouses, there's a bit of a glut, and those are not selling so quickly. By contrast, single family homes, especially in desirable areas, are selling very quickly. So you want to learn all those nuances. You want to learn what the days on the market are, the average time from the time a house is listed until it's in contract. You want to learn what the inventory levels are. Are there many homes listed for sale, or are there very few? For example, a friend invited me several years ago to invest in a project with him in Southern California. I saw that my friend's town had a little over 1,000 houses and over 200 were actively listed. And they were sitting for a very long time. It was a deal that on paper looked good other than those two big factors, which I consider very important. One of which is the days on the market, and the second one is the inventory level, how many houses there are for sale. I've spoken with people in the past, and they had no idea. And I was thinking to myself, you're trying to flip houses, and you don't know if you're in a hot market or cold market. That's going to be very, very difficult. You want to make connections with real estate agents and other investors in that market. And you can very easily do both of those things. Real estate agents and real estate investors have regular meetings where you can go and meet them, build rapport, get to know them, maybe you'll even make a couple new friends. The second house that I ever flipped when I started out in 2005 was somebody that I met at the local real estate group meetup. You're going to meet people who are doing really big, amazing things like building a lot of luxury homes or townhouses or new developments. You have people that are just flipping a house a year or have full-time jobs and just invest on the side. So you chose your market, you learned that market, you did some networking with agents and investors. You kind of get an idea of what to look for now. What are the hot areas? What type of properties sell? What type of properties sit and don't sell so quickly? Now you want to do some marketing. And this depends on your budget. You have to have either time or money. If you have no time and no money, that's going to be pretty tough. So decide which of those resources you want to spend more or both. If I had no money, but I just had time, would be picking up the phone and calling a bunch of real estate agents and telling them that I'm looking for opportunities. Before you do that, you should have at least a pretty good idea of what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. For the most part, we're looking for older homes that are fixer-uppers that we can buy at a discount and add some value, or we can wholesale them. I'm networking to find deals from agents. You pick up the phone and you call, or you go and meet them face to face. The more you make it a real relationship, the more likely it is to work. If you're just going to email people or text people and you're not going to follow up with an in-person meeting or at least a phone conversation, it's going to be very unlikely that it's going to work out. The other thing that we can do is direct market to homeowners. And mostly that's done through direct mail. There's ways that you can be very targeted, and there's ways that you can get more response. I wrote a certain type of letter that I had a guy who moved to Florida but owned multiple properties here in California. And he said, I get calls and letters about my properties all the time, but you're the first one I've called in a long time because your letter caught my attention. It was written differently. I will guarantee you, if you do this, you will start getting leads. Now, a lot of those leads are going to be people that are trying to sell their house for too much. You're looking for the ones that are at least somewhat below market value and where you can add value to it. This is a needle in a haystack. But if you learn how to do this and make 6 figures a deal, you don't need that many quote unquote needles to make a 7-figure income. I don't need to find a deal even every month in order to make really good money. What I think a lot of gurus get wrong is they tell people that it's okay to make 15 or 20 or 20K on a deal. I went to a seminar of one of the most well-known wholesaling gurus, and I made more money than everybody there. I think that year I made about 1.5 million and I did about 18 deals. But everybody else was doing like 40, 50, 60 deals a year. And then they had all kinds of overhead and expenses that I didn't because almost all of them had employees and so on. What ends up happening is the worst of both worlds, which is they don't make a lot of money per deal, but their volume stays pretty low. They're doing maybe 20 or 30 deals a year, but they're making a tenth of the profit per deal. So it doesn't work out. The way to go, if you're smart and if you don't want to have huge overhead every month, it's really to do the big deals. If you're starting out and you find a good deal and you don't have the money to close it yourself, you have several options. First of all, hard money these days, I know lenders that lend you up to 90%. They're not even looking for like amazing credit, amazing work history. So now you really just have to come up with 10%. Maybe let's call it 20. And the rest you can do with a hard money loan because it's basically secured against the property, meaning the property is worth more money than they're lending. Worst case scenario, they'll foreclose on it and then they can sell it. Now, you need to come up with 10 or 20%. Suppose you don't have that. You go to these real estate clubs, and you find somebody that you can trust and say, look, if I list this with you, will you help me take this down? It's important to build relationships. I'd much rather have 5 or 6 people that I really trust in business, I can partner with, that I can sell to, that I can buy from, than have a list of 500 that I have zero relationship with, zero rapport, zero trust. And if you do that, you'll have no problem. Now, trusting people doesn't mean that you don't have a contract. Even if I do a deal with my brother, I'm going to have it in writing. So once you bought a property that you got under market value, there's several ways to make a profit. And my least favorite one, which I just completed today, is to do a complete and thorough remodel and put the house back on the market. It's very time consuming. There's hundreds of decisions to make. What kind of tile, what color tile, what texture tile, what type of vanity, how many lights, how many drawers. It's a lot of work, but you can actually outsource that. And I've done that in the past many times, and I've had an agent that would oversee that. Or if you have a good contractor, you don't really have to be as involved. That's the most common way you'll hear about to sell. The other ways is that I've just taken properties down and resold them to a developer or an investor, kind of like what a wholesaler does, except I actually closed on them. And for me, I found that once I actually closed on them, I had a lot more leverage and I was able to make a much bigger profit. And as soon as I stopped wholesaling, my average profit tripled just doing the same number of deals. I went from 500,000 a year to literally the next year, which was 2013, 1.5 million. I will not wholesale it. I will close on it. And then I can decide because now it's mine. When you own something, you're in less of a hurry and you're less desperate. You can usually make more money on it. But I have to say, this is very important. Don't ever be a desperate buyer and don't ever be a desperate seller because desperation kills profits. You know, a lot of times you see people in this business like they haven't had a deal in a while. And it's happened to me too. They get restless, like, oh my God, I haven't done a deal in 3 or 4 months. I need to make some money. I got to do another deal. So they'll be desperate and they'll buy something that doesn't really make sense and they'll make very little money on it, or worse, they might even make nothing, or worst absolute possible outcome is they could even lose money on it because they did a marginal deal because they were desperate buyers. That's something I have to remind myself too, because I tend to be impatient. Right now, I just put a 2 million plus property on the market. I'm going to be nervous until it's sold, but I'm not going to accept any low offer that comes along. You just got to learn how to live with it. The Six Figure Deals workshop will be taking place on Saturday, June 29th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Tickets are only $47. You can follow the link that's posted here. This may not be repeated ever again, so you really want to grab your ticket. Replay will be available to those who purchase who can't make the live event. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation where people can ask questions. There will be a lot of valuable information sharing how to do six-figure deals consistently. It could be life-changing for some people.